that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am George Harvey, and this is Tom Fennell.
Hello, hello.
This show is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell.
Amazing.
It's a striking coincidence. Anyway, we look at the week's news and energy news, which is something that I put up at my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com, and I come up with 10 or 15 items every day, and we take the best ones, the best of the best.
The best of the best.
Yep.
The best of the blog.
The best of the blog. I went through probably well over 300 headlines a day, which means over 100,000 headlines a year.
That's more than several.
It's more than several. I've been doing that since not long after the Fukushima disaster. So I've looked at a lot of them. I've only been putting it up at a blog since the following year in June. But nevertheless, it's all there. You can look at it. There's something like 12,000 articles referenced through there.
Well, it's interesting. Sometimes when I'm searching on one of the articles that we're going to talk about, because I want to get a picture or something like that, your blog comes up.
Isn't it funny? I know. I've noticed that myself. Okay, so we are starting, today being the 23rd, Thursday the 23rd, we are starting. All day. Just so anybody knowing this will know when this was taped, we're starting with Thursday the 16th. And our first item is about the Solar Impulse 2. And it comes from Clean Technica. Irreversible damage to overheated batteries in Solar Impulse 2 has pushed the second half of its around-the-world flight to early spring of 2016, despite the hard work of the team to repair the batteries that overheated in the record-breaking flight from Nagoya to Hawaii. SI2 will stay in Hawaii for further repairs. And a
little bit of recreation.
And a little recreation, I hope. And we've got some views on that.
Well, this is a cartoon about the situation.
Yep.
And
they're flying off toward the question mark. Wow.
Yeah, they are.
They are.
Unpredictable weather.
One of the things that Tom and I have both thought is that recently an organization said that it was producing lithium sulfur batteries, which are, they have twice as much power stored in half the weight. And this being an
That's
airplane,
like 4 times total, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like in the same weight, you could have 4 times the power. And that would be probably a good thing if they could get those batteries. The problem, of course, is this is developing technology, and sometimes that takes time.
It does.
It does sometimes.
I'm not calling the shots, but I guess I'd go for it.
People have been working on fusion power since 1950, and we haven't got it. And,
Yeah, a long time ago, I was living outside of Princeton, New Jersey, and one of my people living in the apartment complex with me, a friend of mine, was working on fusion power.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, you guys been working on fusion power for a long time. When's it going to come? And he said, one step has to precede another one. It has to precede another one. And even if we had a major push, we couldn't accelerate it any.
Yeah.
And that was maybe as much as 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're still not there.
Yep. Okay.
Well, let me give you a quick takeaway from this one.
Oh, okay, good.
Well, why the batteries failed.
Okay. Why don't you have the camera on both of us?
Well, I can do that.
Yeah, because you're talking. It's not an instant thing, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I gotta figure out which mouse to play with.
Okay.
Well, what it's saying, during the first day ascent on day 1, and apparently what their plan was they would go up quickly and then glide slowly for a long distance and then go up again. So on their way up, the batteries overheated.
Oh, no.
Okay, the battery temperature increased too much due to over insulation of the gondolas. So
Really?
yeah, and there was no way to decrease the temperature for the remaining duration of the flight, as each daily cycle requires an ascent to 28,000 feet and slow descent for energy management issues. So they were stuck, you know. They
I'm glad
hadn't
they made
planned.
it to Hawaii.
So were they.
That'd be a long ways to swim
For
from
sure.
halfway to Hawaii.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item comes from MSNBC, and I think this is
a heavy one.
This is a heavy one, and it's kind of fun. At least if you're on the right side, it's kind of fun. It turns out that climate change deniers had one thing right. It isn't 97% agreement among climate scientists. But the real figure is higher, not lower. A scientific consensus on climate change has gotten stronger, surging past 97% to more than 99.9%, according to a new study reviewed by MSNBC. What do you think of that?
Not much.
They had 17,000 people they interviewed, and these are climate scientists. They're not, you know, like Willie Soon is an astrophysicist.
No, these guys were legitimate.
These
they were
were
the
legitimate.
real thing.
And they got a hold of him and said, "What do you think?" And there were 4 out of 17,000 who were deniers.
I thought they just didn't know one way or the other.
No, the
They
4
actually
were
denied.
saying no. And the guy who was delivering this information said that the 4 were known cranks. And you know, my observation on this is, if you took 17,000 physicists and you could look into their innermost thoughts, you'd probably find more than 4 who believed they were the reincarnation of Isaac Newton.
Well, maybe they were, but they couldn't all 4 have been.
Well, you know, unless our theories about reincarnation are all wrong, how could that happen? Okay. So should we continue, or is
Well,
that
maybe
enough?
Isaac Newton was schizophrenic.
Maybe. He was, from what I understand, he was a pretty difficult person.
He was, huh?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I
Okay.
can believe that.
Now, our next one, also from MSNBC, and the same day,
Oh, this
says-
is an interesting one.
This is
Yeah.
fun. Climate change deniers' new hero is Valentina Zharkova, a professor at Northumbria University in England. Her research seems to suggest a looming ice age, which is making your conspiracy-minded uncle cartwheel with glee. But hold on a minute. Is the research legit climate science? Not even close. Is that a picture you got up there, or are you just looking?
No, it's a picture that came with the article.
Okay.
I'll bring it back down. It's just a nice sunset picture of somebody
nice
fishing.
sunset, but you've got something that you wanted to say about this article.
It is the picture has nothing really to do with the article,
Yeah.
but it came with the article.
Yeah, that happens.
So I put it up. I wanted to get a picture.
What have you got there?
Well, I guess the best research finds that the effects of greenhouse emissions will far outweigh the natural changes in the sun that she's
Yes.
talking about.
Yes.
And they're magnetic changes more
Yes.
than they are changes in the amount of light.
She told people, and this wasn't even in a published paper, it was just in a speech she gave, and I think it was in some small town in Wales or something. But she gave this speech and she told people the sun's output will decline by 70%. Now, you take that out of context, and it sounds like we're all going to freeze to death.
Oh my God, it's going to be dark.
And she was actually saying, when you got it in context, was the sun's magnetic output. And that means
which changes all the time.
it changes all the time. We have a 12-year, 13-year, 10-year, whatever it is,
Yeah, there's a
solar cycle.
normal
And
cycle.
It's
Yep.
pretty unreliable in specifics, but in general, you know, that kind of period. And it means that at some point in the not very distant future, we're going to have a solar low where we will have very, very, very few solar storms for a
Okay.
period of time.
Which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, except that the solar's visual light output and heat output both decline also, but not by 70%. It's more like 0.3%. So, you know, it's a...
Well, as it says here, I think I said it already, the best research finds that the effects of greenhouse gas emissions will far outweigh the natural changes in the sun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We got more to worry about is the coronal ejections.
Absolutely, we do. And
We've talked about that.
We have, and we have to address that before we get clobbered. Because
Well,
that
we
could
can't
have
do
an-
anything to address the ejections, but we can do something to protect our grid from it.
That's right.
And we should be, and the Europeans aren't far ahead of us.
Far ahead of us. The protections that we need are mostly to transformers. Is that right?
Pretty much, because they're the most vulnerable and the hardest to replace.
But the technology needed to do that was known, I don't know when, but it was a long time ago, maybe over 100 years ago. It's a Faraday cage.
Well, Faraday cages have been around quite a while.
Yeah,
so,
quite a while.
Yeah, that would be a way to protect them.
Actually, there's more than one way, isn't there?
Well, one way would be instantly take them offline, isolate them,
Isolate them, yeah.
which would take a lot of hardware. But
It would take a lot of hardware, but on the other hand, we will have notice in advance if there's a big solar ejection.
yeah, 8 minutes.
No, I think it's longer than that, Tom, because
It
this
is.
is a
It is.
physical
No,
object that has
Yeah,
to
it's
travel.
It's
that
not
distance.
light.
It's not light.
It's the electrons and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's 8 hours to 24 hours or something like
We would have enough notice to pull them
that.
offline.
To pull some of them
And
offline.
right now, we do still have that option.
Yeah,
But in many cases, taking them offline involves sending a crew out.
yeah. Sending a
with
crew
sticks.
out with to
They
places
do
that
call
are
them sticks.
on
They're
the
hot
tops
sticks.
of buttes out in Nevada or something.
So the automatic provision for this is what we lack.
Yes.
And we should have it. I mean,
Yeah.
some guy sitting in a system operator's office sometime should be able to say, "Holy cow, we're in trouble,"
We've got a
and start
problem.
pushing some
Well,
buttons.
you know, I should point out to people that what Tom is talking about here is the impact of a solar ejection. And the first of these was called the Carrington event. It took place sometime in the 1850s.
Yeah.
And it basically fried the entire U.S. Telegraph system. And if that same Carrington event hit us today, it would fry our transformers. And we barely missed such a thing about a year ago. Is that when it was?
Just about it. We missed it by something like less than 24 hours.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
the
was a
sun
very
was
short
pointing only about 5 degrees away from
Yeah,
us.
it went by the Earth, and if we'd been a little bit farther down, we
We'd
would
have
have
been whacked.
clobbered. And the estimate at that time was from, I think it was the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission was that it would put the entire American grid down as a grid for something like 3 years.
I was going to say at least a year.
Yeah.
At least a year.
There were a bunch of things that came out simultaneously.
And what-
that all said we need to address
Yeah.
grid issues.
And nobody really wants to face up to that because
Well,
it's going to be very
It's
expensive.
going to be. I don't know how expensive it is. I read
It'd be
that
a
it
lot
would be-
cheaper than being out of electricity for 3
Yeah,
years.
having no electricity for 3 years is not good for business. Okay.
One minor, not minor, but final thing.
Okay.
What happened in 1858 was
Yes.
that these telegraph lines
Yes.
turned out to be wonderful antennas.
Yeah.
And they sucked this
By
stuff up.
golly.
And now we have our transmission lines, which are at least as good, and there's more of them.
Yes. And
So
in
these
those
things,
days-
if this happens, these things are going to get sucked right into the
Yeah.
electric grid.
And though in those days, what happened was the ionization of the telegraph lines meant that the telegraph keys
They got hot.
But they were sending and receiving signals, which were spurious signals, even when they were disconnected.
Yeah.
So they had no electrical
No
supply
power,
at
they were
all.
still working.
And then they'd start sparking and set the telegraph station on fire.
It must have scared the hell out of some of these operators.
What do you do when the 4th of July happens on the 3rd of June? You know, it was not fun. Anyway,
Moving right along, let's
Okay,
talk
good.
about Fukushima for
Yeah.
a second here.
Friday, July 17th, we got a note through swissinfo.ch saying a Japanese delegation from Fukushima, site of the nuclear disaster of March 2011, visited Switzerland to discuss energy policies, technologies, and the development of renewable forms of energy. Almost 5 years, actually, it's a little over 4 years, I think, after the Fukushima disaster, many inhabitants of the prefecture cannot lead normal lives.
This is a picture of a town in Fukushima.
That is absolutely scary when you know what it is.
Well, those things that look like walls,
Yeah.
that's nuclear residue.
In bags. They're in garbage bags. Yeah. And if you look behind them, particularly the second one up on the left, the land behind that looks it looks very hard scrabble. And the reason is because the topsoil was removed. And that's what's in the bags.
That's what's in the bags.
It's the topsoil. Yeah. The topsoil from this village was put into those bags, and it's waiting for somebody to figure out where to put it.
And it looks like the village is normal. It looks like normal, but that actual village is deserted.
It's deserted.
The people are not living there.
Yep.
Well, it appears they may be still farming there.
I don't know.
It almost appears like that.
There's a lot of stuff going on in Fukushima that I don't understand, but
they don't want you to.
Yeah, I know. But the stuff that I don't understand, I think there's stuff that I do understand, and it's pretty scary. And the thing that I mention to people is the fact that nuclear fuel was found, pieces of nuclear fuel, the pellets, which are like small little things shaped like tin cans. They're not round. They were found over a mile from the plant.
So they got blown over there.
Something got blown over there.
And they're telling us it didn't happen.
This is an interesting one because I was down in the NEC office and there was a phone call which is a conference call, and this is on record, from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the people of the NRC were talking about the spent fuel pools, and they said they all behaved perfectly during this whole thing. Those spent fuel pools did exactly what they were supposed to do. And there were places where pumps failed and things like that, but by spraying water
They did work, though.
Yeah, it did work. And Ray Shaddis got on the phone and said, if these things worked perfectly, where did the fuel come from that was found over a mile from the plant?
Valid question.
Very valid question. The answer to it was, that didn't come from a spent fuel pool. There was much too much iodine in it for it to have come from a spent fuel pool. It had been in a critical mass.
Oh. Good explanation.
His next question was, are you saying it was ejected from a reactor? That question was not in the official transcript, but I did hear it.
I read about hearing that.
Yeah.
It happened.
And all the people, from the Sierra Club and Greenpeace and so forth knew about that. And Ray Shaddis believes that one of the spent fuel pools, in fact, had a critical event in it. And my own belief is that in order for a pellet that size to travel a distance over a mile, it had to leave that explosion at a speed well in excess of the speed of sound.
No kidding.
There is no way that could happen if it was coming from an open vehicle, open thing like a spent fuel pool, even if it was above the water.
So it had to been.
It had to have come
contained.
It had to have been in some kind of containment, and I don't know, and of course that whole thing was just kind of not mentioned, but it happened, and it's a matter of record that it happened, and there are a lot of people who heard it. Okay, should we go on?
I think we should.
Okay, Clean Technica, same day, Friday, said an analysis group report claims that regional greenhouse gas initiative involving 9 New England and mid-Atlantic states, including, by the way, Vermont.
There's a map of it up there.
There's a map of it up there, and I think Vermont is in that blue. Maryland is one of them. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Maryland, Delaware.
Yeah, okay.
New Jersey was, but Christie took it out.
Ah.
And Pennsylvania never was.
Yeah, well, they do weird things in Pennsylvania, like blow holes in the ground. But the initiative involving 9 New England and mid-Atlantic states has added $1.3 billion in economic activity in the region since 2011, reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 15%. The program has also saved people in the area $460 on electricity, and I think that means per customer.
Well, if it wasn't per customer,
only
it's insignificant.
Right.
Had to have
That was
had to have been an average. Yeah.
Yeah. Clean Technica was the source of that one.
And what this thing was essentially doing is requiring them to buy a credit for every metric ton of carbon they emit. So
Yeah.
they're offsetting the carbon. It's a carbon trade.
Yeah.
But it seems to have worked. So there's a sort of a graph up there, and it
You
shows.
haven't got it on the screen.
No, let me put it on the screen. Remind me, because sometimes my mind wanders. Here we go.
There it is.
It's showing the participating households, the participating businesses, the workers trained, energy bill savings. There's a lot involved here. The megawatt hours saved.
Yep.
I'm not going to give the numbers because they're meaningless unless you really study them. But
Yeah, that's one of the problems with
the
numbers.
million BTUs saved,
Yep.
the short-term CO2 avoided, and the equivalent number of cars off the road. And I'll give you that number. It's over the lifetime of this, 1.9 million cars.
Wow.
The equivalent.
That's neat.
That is, they're
Yeah.
accomplishing something.
They are.
And I might also mention this is serving as a model, and other states and Canadian provinces are looking at it.
Okay.
And I think already Quebec and Ontario
Yep.
have joined forces and kind of mirrored this. They're doing basically the same thing.
Yep. Okie doke.
Already.
Now, our next item comes from Business Wire. New York Public Service Commission established an innovative shared renewables program to expand customer access to local solar, wind, and other clean energy resources, particularly among low and moderate income New Yorkers. The program aids those who cannot put solar PVs on their homes.
That's a good one. That's a good point.
It's, yeah. And of course,
And why can't they put solar PVs on their homes? Well,
it's
there's a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons. You know, one of them that came up, I was talking to a fellow the other day about this, because they're in the shade of another building.
That's one way.
Because they're in the shade of a
Of
tree.
tree.
Because they're in the shade of a mountain. Because they're, and you just go on and on and on with this.
Or they're facing in the wrong direction,
said-
or somebody else
Yeah.
owns the building. Or,
Yeah, someone else owns the building is pretty common. He said, even on a flat commercial roof, you can't put solar sometimes because the HVAC installations cast shadows.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, they put them on the roofs.
they put them on the roofs. So you've got, they're. I think we're going to come into new building requirements for new buildings. But anyway, that was a good one. The only question I've got about it is, how are they calling this innovative? I mean, I don't think it's as advanced as what we've got in Vermont.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's well, Green Mountain Power kind of set it up, and
Yeah.
they're way ahead of the curve.
They are, absolutely. You can get in Vermont a solar system, get it, finance it 100%, get it installed, have the financing charges go onto your electric bill.
And your electric bill is lower.
Well, your bills are lower. Your
Your overall bills are lower.
Yeah.
Your energy bills are
your
lower.
energy bills
Okay.
decline, and so you.
Well, in many cases, your electric bill is actually lower.
Yeah, it depends upon how you do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you
And they'll
add
even do weatherization for you
and
as
heat
part
pumps,
of this.
heat pumps.
Yeah.
If you do electric and a heat pump and it goes onto the bill, you may have the electric bill go up and the oil bill go
But
away.
you're not buying power. Yeah, you're not buying oil. Right.
All right. Saturday, July 18th. And all I've got to do is get this thing to scroll. Here we go. Since the 1970s, tops of over 500 mountains have been removed, and more than 2,000 miles of headwater streams destroyed by mountaintop removal coal mining. Now,
They're just talking about one small part of the United States.
Yeah.
They're just talking about this Appalachia section.
That's right. This has happened. Well,
It's a part of Appalachia.
yeah, now the U.S. Interior Department has issued proposed water protection rules that would effectively end the common practice. This is from Clean Technica. But Tom, could we go back to that picture?
Yep.
Yeah, here's a picture that comes from a place in Kentucky. And that's an expensive house, it looks like to me. I mean, the way that
They didn't build it after they cut the top off the mountain.
No,
That's
that
for
didn't
sure.
happen. That house is made of brick, and it looks like it may have been architect designed. But in any event, that house was at the foot of a little valley that had a stream going through it and a mountain behind it. And the reason why the area in that valley looks like rubble is because it's rubble. They took the top of the mountain off to get the coal, and what they didn't want was just rolled down into the valley. And so we've got these areas all through Appalachia, 500 of them, where the tops of mountains have just been removed and 2,000 miles of headwater have been destroyed. This has been going on since the 1970s.
Well, I can relate to this personally in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Because I was working down there maybe 1 week a month talking to underground coal miners to try and get them to try a new coal mining cable that my company made.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It makes sense to me. I'm not sure it'll make sense.
And I would go down there and I'd meet the local representative and he'd take me around to the mines and all of that.
Yep.
And I remember with this guy, his name is Adam Hegeman. He came from Bluefield, West Virginia.
Okay.
And he was a great guy, you know.
Yeah.
So anyhow, he's driving me from one coal mine to the other, and he's saying, now we're going to go around a curve. We're driving through roads that look just like Vermont, you know, with streams and mountains and hills.
Yeah, yeah.
And he says, we're going to go around a curve. You're not going to believe what you're going to see. And he didn't clue me into it in advance.
Oh, man.
And we went around that corner, and it had been a mountaintop removal. And they just poured this stuff down the side of the mountain, right down into the waters of the brook, and there's trees in there and
Right.
rocks. And
Yeah.
I almost threw up. It was
Yeah.
horrible.
And you know that one of the things that's really bad about this is things don't grow on piles of rubble like that very well because there's no water table. When the soil is reestablished, it's going to be horrible thin soil. And it'll take hundreds of years for that to recover in any kind of it'll never recover really, but before it becomes something that you could look at and not be disturbed by, well, a lot of time will pass. But in the meantime, those exposed rocks are covered with dust. And every time it rains, some of that dust will wash down into the stream. And the stream
when it gets in the air, too, because you go through these towns, and they're all covered with dust. You
Yeah.
go through these cute little towns, and everything is dirty.
Yeah, and that mess is going to take, it's going to be polluting that stream for years and years and years and years and years.
No, we don't even hear about the effect on labor. Most of these people in these areas made their living one way or another from the underground coal mines, which might employ 200, 300 people, maybe more,
In the town.
in a particular mine.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
and that one particular mine would, pretty much hire everybody in town one way
Yeah,
or another.
yeah.
Well, these 300 people have been replaced by maybe 12.
Yes.
So, and these were good paying jobs.
Yeah.
In Appalachia, then they were good paying jobs. They were unionized. These guys were making a lot of money at that time.
Yep.
And besides the black lung that they were getting and stuff like that,
Yep.
they're out of work now, and they still got the black lung.
Well, that's what happens. You earn the money, and then the money stops coming, and all you've got left is the mess that it's made of your life. Okay, let's get out of that. This is from Clean Technic also. A new report commissioned by the Energy Supply Association of Australia has confirmed that not only is off-grid distributed energy supply a viable option for some regional and remote customers, it's also an option that could lead to significant cost savings and other benefits for network operators.
Well, this article is specific to Australia,
Yeah.
where there's a lot of land, few
Yes,
people,
yes.
and some of these towns, or what we'll call them towns, are very isolated.
Yes.
So getting power into them is very costly.
Yes.
They got to go through miles and miles and miles of transmission lines.
Right.
And the utilities are turning around and saying, well, we're better off letting these people generate their own power.
Right.
Or we generate it locally in a smaller basis just for these guys and eliminate these huge transmission lines that are basically leading to nowhere.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that
Yeah,
here.
we have. And in the past, what they've done, if they had to do local power, they've trucked in diesel oil and run a diesel generator.
Which doesn't sound even like it makes sense, but obviously it does.
It's cheaper than running those hundreds of miles of
Yeah.
transmission lines.
And ultimately, renewables is the
Yeah.
answer.
Now what they can do is put in solar and batteries, or solar and wind and batteries, or wind and batteries, and have that diesel generator sitting there just in case there's some particular reason why it's needed.
Yeah, standby.
Standby power.
Yeah, that's what they call
right.
it. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Tree Hugger tells us this week Sierra Club is celebrating a new milestone, the 200th U.S. coal plant retirement, announced since 2010. This is a new deal because in 2010, huge deal because in 2010 there were 535 coal plants in the country, so it's almost 40% of this fleet has gone away, with the oldest and dirtiest plants going first.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
There's a good picture of a different kind of coal mine.
Oh man, this is an open pit mine.
It's an open pit mine, and the only good part about it is it's located miles from anywhere. It's in the desert there, so it's not really polluting any streams because there aren't any streams.
That's in the desert. I read about a year ago about an open pit mine that was proposed for eastern Germany, and that mine
It was as big as Manhattan, wasn't it? Is that the one?
as big as the
you
island
talked
of
about that
Manhattan.
one, yeah.
And
wow.
that mine, they were talking about just demolishing 3 medieval villages.
Yeah, you
And-
talked
and
about that.
other towns as well.
I mean,
And all
these
the
are
farms.
historic, beautiful
Yeah.
little old towns.
That's right, and all of the
Everybody wears lederhosen.
I don't know if they do that anymore. But these little the towns in there and the farms in there and all that was just going to be removed, and a big hole in the ground, which looks kind of like an awful misrepresentation of the Grand Canyon or something like that, and it's absolutely gigantic.
Well, it sort of looked like this.
And the whole thing kind of makes you wonder about, the people who are upset because wind turbines go on mountaintops and that destroys mountaintop habitat, or solar farms are going in on agricultural land or something like that. This is a problem. Look at that. That is a serious problem. What happened to all the birds that were living on that property?
Well, I don't think it was too many birds in the desert there, but there were some
Well,
for sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
actually what I'm thinking of is Germany. A lot of birds in Germany.
Well, I don't know where this picture even is.
Yeah.
But you see that truck there?
Yeah.
Give you an idea of the size of that truck. The wheels on that truck are about as big as a house.
I was going to say, I think that truck's probably
This is not a highway
4
vehicle.
stories tall.
It probably is.
Yeah.
It probably is. And way in the back, well, it's not. It's a different picture. But somewhere there's this huge crane, if you call
Yes.
it, called a drag line.
Okay.
And the bucket on that drag line is big enough for 2 two-story houses to fit in it.
Oh man.
So one filling of that bucket would take care of that truck.
So you could put 2 two-story houses in the back of that truck.
In the back of that truck, yeah.
Okay. There you go. Now we know. Okay, we're up to Sunday, July 19th.
Jesus Crow, now you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And from the Japan Times, we got this. Japan's Fukushima Prefecture and the National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology are collaborating to test and refine a model of hydrogen supply infrastructure based on chemically bonding the hydrogen rather than attempting to store it as a gas or a liquid.
This is interesting.
Yeah,
This is good because storing hydrogen is a very difficult
Storing
problem.
hydrogen is really problematical. If you try storing it in a steel bottle,
It goes right through the
goes
steel.
right through the steel. Those little hydrogen molecules will find the cracks between the steel atoms in the steel, and they'll just kind of work their way through. And
Well, the solution is simple. You liquefy it.
well, in this particular
But then
case,
it's cold.
It's really
And that you
cold.
got to keep it really cold.
yeah, and you hope that it doesn't heat up.
So that's what they're doing here. They found a chemical way to liquefy it.
Well, what they're doing is they're bonding it with formaldehyde.
Something like
And
formaldehyde,
It makes a different molecule.
different.
And so every
And it's-
molecule of that formaldehyde has got a couple of hydrogen atoms attached
Added to
which
it.
they can remove easily.
Easily, yeah.
So
That's what this is all about.
That's what it's all about. It's the hydrogen can be stored in a much denser quantity when it's bonded like this than when it's just a gas. And You know, as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, you know, the ammonia absorption refrigerator?
Yeah,
Those have hydrogen in them. Do they have to be recharged with hydrogen?
not that I know of. I had one. And
Never had to be recharged.
no,
I'd like to know.
it
how
was
that-
neat. It was it was designed so it would work with a little flame
Yeah.
if you plugged it up to gas, or a little cylinder about the size of a lipstick that was electric.
You know, this
And
is
it would operate on 120 volts or on 12 volts, or if you got a different one of these little cylinders, any voltage you wanted.
you can operate those things on solar power. Heat.
Oh, sure.
Heat.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
in fact, you can buy a machine called an ISAC, and I forget what ISAC stands for, but it's ISAAC, which takes the ammonium hydroxide, drives the ammonia out all day in the hot sun, and then at night it takes that and it turns it into ice. And if you're operating in a hot summer, you can make a couple of tons of ice a day.
Water ice.
Yeah, water ice out of a machine that cost about $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, and it operates with no electricity at all, and no moving parts
Well, you must have to have some moving parts to use the ice.
to get the ice out.
You can blow air
you'd have
over
to
it.
do that.
Yeah.
But that was a machine. Interestingly enough, the ammonia absorption refrigeration was invented in the 19th century. But the person who made it possible to run it without moving parts,
That's pretty bright.
pretty bright guy named Albert Einstein.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was noted for being a little bit on the bright side,
I
wasn't
think he was a little he was a little kooky, and he was also almost as bad as a lot of people in my family.
Is that what happened?
Right.
There's a takeaway here.
Okay.
For those who are interested in the chemistry here, they're handling hydrogen in a liquid that is liquid under ambient temperature and pressure,
Okay.
which is the big improvement over freezing it or
Okay,
cooling
yeah.
it. They combine it with toluene, which
Toluene. I was
which
saying
kind of nasty
formaldehyde.
stuff.
Formaldehyde. It's toluene.
Yeah, they're all closely
Toluene is
related,
nasty.
kind
Yeah.
of. They're all
Toluene is
nasty stuff.
Yep.
And it creates a liquid called methyl cyclohexane.
There you go. I should
And
have remembered that.
this hydrogen carrier, the MCH is what they call it, can contain a substance in highly condensed form and ensure its safety during long distance transportation, so they can bring it
So
from here to there without it blowing
You
up.
could even use it as a fuel in a vehicle.
And you can.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And then they coincidentally developed a generator that reverses the process, so they get the hydrogen back.
Yep.
So, it's just some pretty smart cookies are behind this.
Well, there's a lot of smart people in the world. You get enough of them going together, and maybe we'll save the place.
We might.
We might. You never can tell. Of course, part of the problem is some smart people don't want to save the place. Okay, our next one comes from the DesMoinesRegister.com. And that's without the, if you want to try it. It's DesMoinesRegister.com. Iowa could meet 40% of its energy needs from wind power within 5 years, according to an industry report on the state's wind potential. The state could push its wind energy mix to 41% in 2020 and supply enough power to more than match its energy usage by 2030 with excess energy to export to other states, the American Wind Energy Association says. And one thing that I've got to fault that last statement with is that there isn't a state in the United States that can't manufacture more energy than it needs on renewables.
That's I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think you're certainly right. It could be done. I mean, we could produce whatever we need out of renewables without even much scratching the surface.
That's right.
I mean, think of all the energy that's available in the
Yeah.
sea.
The numbers that I remember for Vermont are that it could get 130% of its electrical power from wind if all of the wind areas were developed. We can only develop about 2% of our land for wind.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, the wind installations actually use about 2% of the land that's developed. So it's a tiny amount because the wind turbines, and road and so forth, leave a lot around that is not developed.
People were probably looking at that picture and saying, "What's that got to do with wind?" And I don't know what it's got to do with
Okay,
wind, but
all right.
it came in that article, and it is about biomass.
Oh, okay.
And that article had a lot of stuff in it. And one
Yeah.
of the things was making ethanol out of farm waste.
Yes.
So that's what those square things are.
Yes.
That's like
You
crunched
can
up
make
corn
ethanol
stalks
out
and stuff
out
like
of
that.
a lot of things, including forest waste too.
Oh, yeah.
But the potential for solar in Vermont
It's
is
bigger.
almost 1,000% of what we need.
Okay.
You
I
would
hadn't
not
seen that.
want to see-
I don't remember
yeah.
seeing that
You would
particular.
not want to see Vermont develop to the point where 1,000% of its energy need was made into solar, because all of our agricultural fields would be blue.
But it's interesting because a lot of the solar farms that are popping up on agricultural farms.
Agricultural land. And, Jason Cooper's solar farm that he did up in Putney, I think it was, which was not huge, but it was put up on land that had been agriculture, sort of, but it was really marginal. The only thing that you could do with it was to grow straw.
Okay.
And of course, straw is basically almost a throwaway. So it
Well, they
was,
were actually growing hay.
they were growing hay.
Well, hay and straw is hay without the seeds.
Well, straw is coarser than hay too.
What's
Straw is
it's
not
what's
being-
left of hay
Yeah.
after you take the seeds
The
out.
straw does not have. It's not used for feeding animals.
No, there's no food value in it.
Yeah, and so
Hay's got all those seeds in it, and that's what the animals are eating.
Really, I thought they were eating bugs.
They're probably doing a bit of that too.
I've read that
That's where they
actually
get the protein.
Protein from bugs. The cows get the protein from bugs. Okay, are we going on?
Yeah, we might as well.
Okay.
Can't dance.
Vermont's Green Mountain
Oh, this is a
Power
nice
and
one,
its
yeah.
CEO, Mary Powell, have been getting increasing national notice for moving from traditional one-way generation and transmission of power to an energy services company, providing customers with a new wide range of products and services. Tom Kuhn, the head of the Edison Electric Institute, calls GMP
Remember that name.
a real leader.
This is interesting because we've discussed this before.
Yeah.
The Edison Electric Institute is kind of a club of very large utilities.
Yes.
And they have been fighting tooth and nail throughout America to kind of squelch renewables.
We might have a special on that.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Nice picture here. This is
Isn't that lovely?
I can't now it escapes me.
It escapes you?
It's on it's on Lake
On
Champlain.
Yeah.
And there's a nice solar field there. I can't think of the name of this place, but it's a resort. You can go visit it. You can
Yeah.
spend the day there. It's like a park, but it's
Yeah.
privately
I forget
owned.
where that is. I've seen that
I have
before.
Well, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Okay.
On the way driving home from here, it's going to pop right into my head.
I'm sure that's the case.
But isn't
The
it a
way
pretty
memory
spot?
works. Yeah.
You know, and there's those solar panels there. I don't think they're bothering anybody.
Probably not. That item, by the way, came from the Daily Journal. Okay, we're up to Monday, July 20th. Germany added more than 3 times the amount of offshore wind capacity in the first 6 months of this year than it did in the same period of 2014, and the country looks to reach half of its 2020 offshore target of 6,500 megawatts later this year.
Interesting picture of a
Oh, yeah.
seaside solar
Actually,
farm, and it looks like it's creating its own fog.
Yeah, it sure does.
And I cheated.
It
It's
is
not in
sort of-
Germany. It's in Copenhagen.
It's close. Okay, some 1,765 megawatts of new offshore capacity were installed in the first 6 months of 2015, compared with 492 in January through June of 2014. This is from Reuters UK.
There's a quick takeaway here.
Yes.
It says some 89% of Germany's total operating 668 turbines, they have a lot more than I thought they did,
Yep.
are located in the North Sea.
Yep.
And the rest are in the shallower and less windy Baltic Sea.
Yes.
So mostly they're in the
In the North Sea.
in the North Sea.
A lot of power in the North
Whereas this is taken care of.
Yep.
Copenhagen's in the North Sea too, and the Scots have stuff in the North Sea. And,
Copenhagen is not in the North Sea.
well, no, it's off the North Sea. Yeah.
It's actually
It's on the other side
on
of
the other side
yeah.
of
I've been to
Jutland.
Copenhagen, so
Yeah.
yeah. But
Okay.
yeah,
Our next item, Las Vegas Review Journal told us that Nevada Power is seeking approval to build 2 100-megawatt solar energy projects as part of a 3-year plan to help replace the utility's coal-fired capacity. The prices of the proposed 20-year agreements with Boulder Solar and Playa Solar 2 are about $50 per megawatt hour.
That's a nickel a kilowatt hour.
That's a nickel a kilowatt hour. The average cost of solar renewable energy delivered to Nevada Power in 2014, which wasn't all that many years ago, was $137.65 per megawatt hour.
That's like 14 cents.
Yeah, it's been cut to a third of what it was.
Yeah.
But look at that $50.
And there's other bids that are coming in lower than this.
Yeah, look at that $50 per megawatt hour, and you say, okay, let's just add the incentive into that of 2.3 cents, and you're up to $73 per megawatt hour. You're starting to get very competitive, even without the incentives.
Well, that's part of what this article is saying.
Gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to see the incentives disappear.
Oh, well, the incentive's going to disappear.
But they're going to. I've been following Congress, and they probably will be renewed this year.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. But
it's not going to last forever.
They're ditching it in the UK.
Yeah.
And
well, if you don't need them, you don't need them.
Well, yeah. If
but
you don't
now,
need them for the marketplace,
how about we start looking at these incentives for
coal,
fossil fuels?
Yeah. But the thing is, we don't need them for the marketplace to turn to solar, but we need to turn to solar faster than the marketplace will have us do it, because we're losing species at a rate of about 1 every 10 minutes.
Due to coal.
We've got that. Yeah, we're due to coal and oil and just the regular mess that we've got, natural gas. None of it's good for anybody. Okay, Clean Technica tells us fossil fuel industry, this is an opinion piece, the fossil fuel industry is now entering terminal decline. The detail is interesting and important, but unless we recognize the central proposition that the fossil fuel age is coming to an end within 15 to 30 years, not 50 to 100, we risk making serious and damaging mistakes in climate and economic policy, in investment strategy, and in geopolitics, and in defense. And a good example of this is the person who wants to put in a coal-burning plant today, and they are doing it. Not much in the United States.
No, but it's still being done.
It's being
in
done.
some parts of the world, it still makes sense to them.
Yes, well.
By the way, I got to mention something, but this was a very comprehensive article.
Yes.
And we could spend the whole show talking about just this article.
We could indeed.
So I would suggest that anybody watching this is interested, Google fossil fuel and terminal decline.
Yeah.
And this article will come up.
Or
and it's worth reading.
You could go to the blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com, look at Monday, July 20th.
And there it is.
And there it is. And
well, if you're interested in it out there, this is a very good article, very comprehensive.
Right. Tuesday, July 21st, from Clean Technica. Cornell Tech, now yes, this is part of Cornell University, is building an applied science campus on Roosevelt Island, or Roosevelt if you prefer, in New York City. It will feature an environmentally friendly classroom and lots of green space, but its most noteworthy structure will be a 250-foot tall dormitory designed to house 520 people when it's completed in 2017. The dormitory will be the tallest passive house building in the world.
Yeah, that's impressive.
It is.
This 25-story passive house.
Now, just in case somebody doesn't know what a passive house is, it means that the house does not have any heat source. It doesn't need a heat source.
The people are the heat source.
The people are the heat source. If you have got a Labrador Retriever, you got a big heat source.
That's a heat source, yeah.
And
interesting. I got an interesting background here, because on that very spot,
really,
and they're probably going to have to tear it down to build this.
Yes.
I designed the electrical power for a medical surgical building.
Oh, really?
It was basically a dormitory for doctors.
Oh, okay.
Or an apartment house for doctors.
Maybe it was passive.
It wasn't passive then.
They're just rebuilt.
But it was on that very spot. It was on that very spot.
Well, that's really interesting, Tom.
That's the 59th Street Bridge in the background.
Yes, I knew that.
And it's interesting because you can't drive from the bridge down to that island.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
They've got to take an elevator. The cars go on an elevator and it takes them down.
I didn't know you could do that.
Well, if you're in the general public, you can't.
Ah, I see. Okay.
But there's hospitals on that island, and there's ambulances and stuff like that have to use that island. So that's what the elevators are for.
Man. Okay.
I wonder how all those students are going to get there.
They'll swim.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's not very far.
It's not very far.
It's only about 50 yards or
My
100 yards.
brother
maybe.
used to have an apartment that was about 2 blocks from there, 3 blocks from there, and we would walk over there. There's a really, really nice, I think it's a Whole Foods store or something like that, right under that bridge.
Okay.
On the Manhattan side.
On the Manhattan side, yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, I can definitely believe this.
Yeah. Okay. Next, business green. Offshore UK wind projects going into construction in 2020 could deliver clean power at a cost that is lower than the power delivered from gas-fired power plants, according to a study by consultancy BVG Associated. The report was commissioned by renewable energy developer Statkraft and details how the offshore wind sector would comfortably beat the £100 per megawatt hour goal.
So this is about Britain, and this isn't very surprising.
No, it's not. In fact, I think it's too conservative. Let's go on. North American Wind Power tells us that Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, has ensured that a laundry list of tax incentives, including a 2-year extension of the wind energy production tax credit, are included in a bill the Senate Finance Committee will consider on July 21st. Actually, that was reported on July 21st, so it's already happened. Allies of non-renewable energy sources have worked hard against the inclusion of the wind energy provision.
This guy Grassley is a little interesting for a Republican.
Well, North American Wind Power came up with that. He's from Iowa.
Yeah.
And Iowa has enough wind power to power a large part of the United States.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
They can build wind turbines and export that power and make money.
Make money.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
That's what it is. Yes, that's right. That's why there's a little bit of a disjunction within the conservatives and the Tea Party about whether they should be supporting coal, because there are a lot of people in that party who are connected with technologies that are attacking coal, and Chuck Grassley happens to be one of them.
Well, it's their bottom line.
It's their bottom line. That's right. Okay, we're up to Wednesday.
This is an interesting picture. I'll pull it up here.
Okay. Yeah, that is, I looked at that picture for a while and puzzled over it before I realized.
It looks like a drive-in theater.
Yeah, this is from Bloomberg. French lawmakers will adopt a long-delayed energy law on Wednesday to reduce the country's reliance on nuclear reactors and lower carbon emissions by cutting the use of fossil fuels. The sweeping energy transition law, I'm stumbling over my tongue, reflects a campaign pledge made more than 3 years ago by President François Hollande. Hollande. I'm very bad at
the French don't pronounce the H.
Hollande. Okay, I'm glad you told me that.
I had a French Canadian friend who used to talk about staying at the Holiday Inn.
To cut nuclear energy in favor of renewables. I went to a place once where a person was talking about, and he wasn't French, he was from some other country, but he was talking about, that's a wanna.
A wanna?
A wanna. And I
Got
said,
me.
What in the world is a wanna? He said, like the 7 wonders of the world.
Oh, okay. This is a very interesting picture. I don't think it's in France. I think it's in Spain.
Oh, I thought it was in France.
It might be. Maybe I know there's something like this in Spain.
It's in the Pyrenees, but it might be in Spain. But it was.
I'm sure that's the Pyrenees because there's a lot of mountains there. Not too many mountains in France.
Right.
But what we're looking at there, that looks like a drive-in.
Yeah.
All of these things here are flat mirrors that are aimed.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're aimed at that big screen up there, which is a big cylindrical mirror, not cylindrical.
It's a parabolic.
Parabolic mirror.
Yeah.
Which is focusing all of that energy on this structure in the middle.
Right.
And something's happening in that structure.
It's heating up.
That's sucking up the heat.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of heat.
It's a lot of
it's
heat.
A lot of heat.
It's not going to be water.
So this is solar thermal.
Solar thermal. They're probably heating up salt and melting it.
Or maybe even sodium.
Yeah.
Metallic sodium, because someone work on that.
And metallic sodium is a real pip of a.
Well, you got to keep it away from air
You got to keep it away from water.
and water. Oh, that's definitely.
I had a little lump of metallic sodium and wanted to show the kids, what this stuff was. So I asked one of them to fill up a bucket with water. And the lump of sodium was in a little vial under oil. So
Yeah,
I
that's
took
how
it
you
out-
store it.
Yeah, I took it out with a pair of tweezers and just dropped it into the water, and it immediately caught fire. They were very impressed by that. Okay, that was from Bloomberg. Our next item is ongoing.
Oh, that's Bloomberg again.
It's Bloomberg.
He's right on top of things, isn't he?
Bloomberg. Ongoing expansion of solar energy capacity in India has prompted Deutsche Bank, the international leader based in Frankfurt, Germany, to revise growth forecast for the segment in India by 34 gigawatts by 2020. The forecast in the report, India 2020 Utilities and Renewables, is a 240% increase from the previous projection of 14 gigawatts over the period. This is from Green Tech Lead. That is
I'm
really
intrigued by this
amazing.
picture here. There's 4 Indian guys looking at this solar panel. I wonder what they find so fascinating
I
about it.
have no idea.
But
No,
the other interesting thing is there's barbed wire there.
There's
and it looks like it's angled to keep people in, not to keep people out. That's got me going.
I don't know.
I don't know, maybe
I
these
was
guys
very-
want to steal the panels or something.
Maybe they do. I was very puzzled by that myself. Yeah. And our final item here is this from the Barry Montpelier Times Argus. A plan to run a 1,000 megawatt cable power line down Lake Champlain and across Vermont to bring Canadian power to southern New England is getting key support in the Green Mountain State. Vermont officials and the CEO of TDI New England said the company has reached agreements with 4 state agencies, 3 towns, and the state's largest power company. Yeah, of course, it's Green Mountain Power.
I got a map up there.
Okay.
This underwater cable is going to start up in Alberg, which is right there on a place
Right.
where New York,
Yeah, it's gonna be
Quebec,
at the-
and Vermont meet together.
It's going to be on the Canadian border.
Right on the border. It's going to go all the way down Lake Champlain till they can't go any further.
Right.
And Lake Champlain turns into a swamp.
Yep.
Then it's coming out, and it's going by highway, which isn't shown on the map here, over to Ludlow, which
Yes.
is about where that angle is.
Right.
And if you look at the map, there's a blue dot on the bottom. That's where Brattleboro is.
Aha. Okay.
But in Ludlow, it's going to join the grid.
It's going to join the grid in Ludlow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That I was wondering where that went.
And that
Once
picture
it got to
there
Ludlow.
has absolutely nothing to do with any of this, but it fascinates me.
Yeah, it
It's
fascinates me too.
it's real. It's in somewhere in Africa,
Oh my gosh.
and this is. I pity that poor lineman there. How does
Yeah,
he
I
know
that.
who's who?
I know. I'm just wondering if you took that and dropped it into a vat of boiling water, would it make spaghetti? The other thing I'm wondering is whether it has anything to do with whatever it is that's on the top of Donald Trump's head.
I got a picture of that.
Oh, have
I
you
got a
really?
picture of Donald Trump without his comb over.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he doesn't wear a wig. That's his hair.
That's
He
his
just
hair.
lets it grow long, brushes it in front. Yeah.
Well, it tells me that he's putting a very kind of an unreal picture on who he is.
Well, we're
But
out of.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are out of things to say.
Well,
and
we
it's
got
good
a we
thing
got a
because-
nice little slideshow here we could show real
but
quickly.
we don't have time, Tom.
Are we out of time
we are
already?
Out of time, yeah. Yeah. So we're going to have to.
Well,
say
it looks
goodbye.
like.
I know.
Oh,
it
I didn't
does.
set that
You
one
didn't set
going.
it.
I didn't set it
So,
going.
But I was keeping track of the time, so we're going to have to say goodbye.
Well, let me get
So
myself
I am
in the
George
picture
Harvey,
here.
and this off screen is Tom Fennell.
He's on the screen now.
And we will say goodbye and hope that you tune in next time.
And makes the wind blow strong as it will.